So today we will continue with further discussion on factor analysis. So last time we saw in the last lecture recording that I had sent, we discussed about degrees of freedom. So how degrees of freedom are defined in orthogonal factor model, and there were three cases: d equal to 0, d less than 0, and d greater than 0. So we saw that we have only one case which is of most interest to us, the case where you have no solution and you try to approximate that solution. So today we will try to see how estimation is done in factor model and how that leads to the solution that we want. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what we know is we have a relationship that the variance covariance matrix sigma is to be expressed as QQ prime plus psi, right? Okay, again somehow on Saturdays my laptops also become lazy. They stop responding. I don't know what is the problem. Even for joining it took so much time. Okay, QQ prime plus psi. Right, that's what we want. We want to express sigma as QQ prime plus psi. So we have to find Q, we have to find psi. Of course, in real data, even sigma would be unknown, but we know how to estimate sigma. We can estimate all the variances and covariances. So I can get sigma hat. I can't get sigma, but I can get sigma hat. And once I get sigma hat, I will try to find Q hat and psi hat such that sigma hat is Q hat prime plus psi hat. Okay, that is what we want to do. Now, how to do this? How to do this? Of course, if by some method I can decide what Q is, then my job is easier. Okay, so if suppose I get Q from some way, by some method, then getting psi is easy because I will just obtain psi hat as sigma hat minus Q hat prime. But there is a small catch here. The thing is, I want psi to be a diagonal matrix. So of course I would prefer psi hat also to be a diagonal matrix. So I cannot directly do this because this cannot guarantee that psi hat will be diagonal matrix. But we can, anyway, we are talking about an approximate solution, so we don't need to worry much. What we can do is psi jj hat means diagonal element of psi, we will define as sigma jj hat minus jjth element of QQ prime hat. Okay, so okay, I mean to write jjth element here, but this has again stopped responding. Okay, so this is jjth element of QQ prime hat. And do I know something about jjth element of QQ prime hat from the discussion that we had in the earlier lecture? Anyone? Does anyone remember? We had something similar. No, you don't remember? What is this called as? What is this called as? That's a hint.
I think the JJ element of QQ prime square. Um,
And
JJ
communality, ma'am.
communality, correct. JJth element of QQ prime was communality, correct. And this we called as specific variance. Do you remember? You're not supposed to forget whatever happened in the earlier lecture, at least till the term and examination. Okay. So this is communality for jth variable, and this is specific variance for jth variable. In fact, if I remember correctly, we also defined, we also discussed how we can see whether a factor model explains how much percentage of variation in each variable. Do you remember something like that? We said that this communality upon sigma jj would give me proportion of variation in jth variable explained by the orthogonal factor model. Have I remember talking about it. Do you remember listening to it? Nobody remembers? Did I dream about it or what?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. I thought I dreamt about talking about it and I forgot to actually talk about it. Anyway, so if I get Q, then my job is easy. I can get psi. But then how to get Q still remains a question. So there are various methods. There are three major methods. One is your usual maximum likelihood method. Then second method is based on principal components. Okay. And third method is called as principal factor method. Okay. So these are three methods used for estimation in orthogonal factor model. We won't be talking about this. We'll be talking about only these two methods, maximum likelihood and principal components. And in fact, even in that, we will talk in more detail about this method. This will just touch upon it. Why? Because in general, you know maximum likelihood method. So what are the assumptions in maximum likelihood method? The very first thing is you have to start with some distributional assumption. You can write down likelihood only if you know something about the distribution, only if you know form of the distribution, correct? Without knowing form of the distribution, you cannot write down likelihood. Now, so far we have not brought any probability distribution in picture. In fact, in the very first week, I told you that initially we are going to start with something like exploratory multivariate analysis, where we don't have any distributional assumptions. We talk about only the things which are purely based on data. And PCA was one part of it. So in PCA also we discussed that we never said that my data comes from such and such distribution. The only assumption in PCA is the data should be more or less continuous. For count data or for categorical data, you cannot do PCA because you have to compute, variance, covariance matrix, etc. So the data should be continuous. But we did not say whether it is normal or whether it is something else. Okay, multivariate normal. Similarly, in factor analysis also, so far, we have not talked about any distributional assumption for the underlying data. The data set can come from any distribution. That is our assumption. Okay. In fact, this is also known as exploratory factor analysis. There is something else called as confirmatory factor analysis where you have more assumptions, but we are not going to go there. We won't be dealing with it. Hence, maximum likelihood method cannot work actually. But if at all we make, say, multivariate normal assumption, if we assume that the data is actually coming from multivariate normal, then we can try the maximum likelihood method. So I will just give a very quick introduction to estimation of factor, estimation of loading by maximum likelihood method, and then we'll go to the principal component method. Because we have already studied PCA, we will be using principal component method. So in maximum likelihood method, what I would assume? So I would first assume that my X vector, the observed vector, comes from p-variate normal distribution with mean mu and variance covariance matrix sigma. That is my first assumption. Okay. Now, after this, what do I say? Because now I know distribution, I can write down likelihood of this x, correct? So I can write down this likelihood of x and I can try to estimate mu and sigma from it. We have not yet studied the multivariate normal theory, but I believe most of you have had introduction to at least bivariate normal distribution. Am I right? Is there anyone who has not even seen the PDF of bivariate normal distribution? Okay, so I assume everyone has seen PDF of bivariate normal distribution. Okay, and multivariate normal is just a generalization of that. So right now I will directly write the log likelihood. I don't mind if you completely ignore this at this stage, because once we finish all these exploratory things, we are going to start with multivariate normal distribution, and at that time we will be writing this likelihood hundreds of times. So you will get more comfortable with it. But I don't want to come back to factor analysis just for this 5-7 minute discussion. So I'm writing the likelihood here, and I'm sure you can find at least some parts familiar. So minus n by 2 log of determinant of 2 pi sigma. Okay. Then minus half sum over I going from 1 to n xi. Maybe I should write OI, because xi you might get confused with ith component, whereas what we mean is ith observation. So OI minus mu prime sigma inverse OI minus mu, sum is over this entire thing, quadratic form. Okay. So this is my likelihood. What do you do in maximum likelihood method? You try to maximize this likelihood with respect to the parameters, unknown parameters, that is mu and sigma here. But finally, I am interested in estimation of Q. So how do I bring in Q? What I'll do is I will substitute, of course, mu hat turns out to be your mean vector x bar. So there is no surprise there. And what we'll do is we will substitute sigma as QQ prime plus psi. Okay. So sigma hat will be Q hat prime plus psi hat. So now this Q and psi are entering into my likelihood through sigma. Is it okay? And then you try to maximize this likelihood with respect to elements of Q, elements of psi, and you will get some estimates. Okay. Of course, things are not straightforward. In fact, even when you take univariate data, even when you take k equal to 1, still equations become complicated and we have to resort to iterative methods. You don't get an explicit solution. What do I mean by explicit solution? When you go for simple estimation of mean or estimation of variance using maximum likelihood method in say univariate normal, you will get one equation for mu, you will get one equation for sigma. So you get a clear-cut formula for mu and sigma. That is known as explicit solution. Whereas here, the equation will be so complicated that we cannot really rearrange it to get say mu on left hand side and sigma on left hand side, q basically, q on left hand side and everything else on right hand side. We can't do that. Okay, so we just get some relationship between q and other things. Hence, explicit solution does not exist. We need to use iterative methods like say Newton-Raphson method, multivariate Newton-Raphson method to get solutions. Okay. So here I will stop my discussion about maximum likelihood method. As I said, we are not going to go into the details. We won't be actually solving right now. Later when we study multivariate normal, you may want to come back and verify. We will talk about principal component method. Principal factor method, anyway, we won't talk about it. But principal component method, since we have already studied PCA, we will use it more often. Okay. So what do we do in principal component method? if you remember the very first lecture on factor analysis, I started by assuming that lambda k plus 1, lambda k plus 2, etc., that is k plus 1th, k plus 2th, and all the remaining eigenvalues are 0. And in that case, we could actually get an exact equation for Q. Do you remember that? Long back, last week. Hello? Is anyone around?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so do you remember that we had discussed that PCA can directly provide a solution to this factor analysis problem if some eigenvalues are 0? Does anyone remember such discussion?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are going to generalize from that. We said that we cannot directly go ahead with it because in very, very rare cases that would actually happen, that is the eigenvalues being 0. But we will try to see if we can ignore some of the eigenvalues, okay? Means if they are very small, then can we consider them to be negligible? Okay, so what we will do is we will take a Q from there, and hence we would define our Q hat as root lambda 1 nu 1 root lambda 2 nu 2 and root lambda k nu k. So what I have done, I need my Q matrix to have order p cross k. I know each eigenvector is of order p cross 1. So I take root lambda 1 into nu 1 as my first column of Q, root lambda 2 into nu 2 as my second column of Q, and root lambda k nu k as my kth column. Is it okay? Now, see, I am considering only k, so I am actually ignoring k plus 1, k plus 2 up to pth eigenvalues and eigenvectors. They are there, but I am ignoring them. Okay. So of course my solution would be good if they are actually ignorable, they are negligible. Okay. So this is how we estimate Q. And with this Q, now I can get Q prime, and we can compute psi hat as, jjth element of psi hat as jjth element of Q prime with minus sign plus jjth element of sigma hat. Okay, I should have written sigma hat minus Q prime jj, but it's fine. Okay, so this is sigma hat jj minus sum over jth commonality. So q j l square, l going from 1 to k hat, of course. Okay, so we are using first k eigenvalues. By the way, when I say first, I mean that the eigenvalues are arranged in the decreasing order of their magnitude. This is absolutely essential. Okay, if then, I will take only the top eigenvalues. So we take first k eigenvalues, we take first k eigenvectors, and then we multiply square root of eigenvalue to each eigenvector, and that becomes our loading matrix. Okay, this is what principal component method says. And why this? Because we have already seen that this is a possible solution if these things are 0. So now we will say, okay, they are not 0, but anyway we are interested in an approximate solution. We know that we cannot get an exact solution, so we'll get an approximate solution by ignoring these things. Okay, so that is the solution by principal component method. And how much is the error in approximation? So generally we won't prove it mathematically, but it can be shown that sum over all the elements ij of this sigma hat minus q hat prime minus psi hat. So ijth element of this. Diagonal elements will be adjusted, no worries. Diagonal elements would be forcefully adjusted, so errors at the place of diagonal elements will be 0. But off diagonal elements will have some error because we have not taken anything like specific variance there. Okay, so off diagonal elements will have error, but it can be shown that the squared error in off diagonal terms is less than or equal to lambda k plus 1 square, lambda k plus 2 square, up to lambda p square. Remember,
Can you
I'm
repeat,
starting.
ma'am?
Sorry.
Ma'am, can you repeat once?
Okay, yeah, I will repeat. So, see, what I'm doing is I have sigma hat here. Then I'm supposed to have q hat prime here, and then psi hat here. Q hat prime, we estimate q hat by the eigenvectors and eigenvalues, by using eigenvectors and eigenvalues. So we don't know what their values would be. They could be any values. Then diagonal elements of psi we estimate by subtracting this diagonal from this diagonal. Correct? We discussed today at the beginning of the lecture that diagonal elements of psi would be estimated by subtracting diagonal elements of q prime from diagonal elements of sigma. So, as far as diagonal elements are concerned, this equality holds true. No worries there, no error left. So far, everyone with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but I can't say the same thing with the off diagonal elements. Suppose off diagonal element here was sigma 1, 2, and then I get some element here, let me call it say k12, okay, by product of relevant rows and columns from q prime. So I got k12. Here I am forcing the off diagonal entries to be 0 because I want my psi hat to be a diagonal matrix. Okay, so I am not sure whether my sigma 1, 2 is going to be equal to k12 or not. Okay, so my sigma 1, 2 need not be equal to k12. By coincidence, in some cases it might turn out to be more or less equal, but in many cases they won't be exactly equal. So there will be some error involved. Okay, so that error is actually this error in ijth term. So ideally I could also ignore this if I write I not equal to j, because in the error for off diagonal entries, phi is not contributing at all because phi is a diagonal matrix. Okay, so this error sigma 1, 2 minus k12, similarly you are going to have errors for all the other terms. Okay, so all these terms. So all these errors are there. So how can we be sure that our approximation is good? So people have derived an upper bound for the squared errors, sum of squared errors, and that turns out to be this. Okay, remember it is starting from k plus 1. It is not starting from 1. So these are basically the eigenvalues that we had ignored. Okay, so it means that if my eigenvalues are very low, if these eigenvalues k plus 1, k plus 2, etc. up to pth eigenvalues, they are very small in magnitude, then this quantity will be small, which would mean that the error would also be small. Okay, so this method of principal component analysis, so estimation of factors via PCA, this method works well if only k eigenvalues are important, remaining eigenvalues are negligible. Okay, and they can be ignored, because then in that case the error will be very low. Is it okay now?
Ma'am, I have one query.
Yes.
Ma'am, why we wrote that as sigma hat, ma'am, we are estimating q hat such that as q hat and psi hat such that it becomes sigma. So ma'am, why we are
No. We are estimating q hat and psi hat such that it becomes sigma, but I don't have any method of directly estimating q when I'm dealing with PCA method of estimation. See, come here. So when I'm using principal component method for doing estimation in factor analysis, what I do is first I estimate sigma hat. Okay, from the data, first I estimate sigma hat. After getting sigma hat, I get eigenvalues of sigma hat and I get eigenvectors of sigma hat. Then those eigenvalues and eigenvectors I use to get Q hat.
Okay.
Okay, and then I use entries from sigma hat and entries from Q hat to get an estimate for psi jj hat. Psi jj hat is obtained as sigma jj hat, which comes from sigma hat minus Q j L hat square sum over L, which comes from this Q hat.
Okay.
So I need both.
Basically, we are estimating sigma hat at first based on the data set, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We are first estimating sigma based on the data set, and then from that sigma we are constructing Q hat, and from that Q hat and sigma we are constructing psi hat.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other query? Anyone else? Okay, so and I tried to tell you that in which case this approximation is all right. If so, people have given this upper bound for error. Okay, this is an upper bound for error. We are not deriving it, we'll just take it to be true. So this is the error term, this is squared error. So sum of squared error would be less than or equal to this. So if lambda k plus 1, lambda k plus 2 up to lambda p are actually negligible, then my error would be pretty low, which would mean that my approximation is quite good. My solution estimation method has performed quite well. Is it okay? Can we go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, because we are using PCA method, the method to determine the number of factors is also similar. So what we can do is amount of variation explained by jth factor. Amount of variation explained by jth factor would again be lambda j upon sum over lambda j's, or I can call it sum over lambda i's.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, is there any proof for that upper bound of that error term?
Yes, of course there is a proof. People have derived it. You can't write whatever you want, but we are not going to go into the details of the proof.
Okay.
If you want, you can try to look up somewhere, or maybe you can try to work out on your own.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't go into the proof, but yes, of course people have derived it, so there is a proof. You can't write directly without a proof. But for our syllabus, we don't need those details, so we are skipping it.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So amount of variation explained by, it would actually use properties from linear algebra, nothing else. Yeah. Amount of variation explained by jth factor would be again same as in case of PCA, that is lambda j upon sum over I going from 1 to p, and we can choose the number of factors. We can choose the number of factors based on the proportion of variation explained based on the proportion of variation explained by them, which can also be captured via scree plot. Do you remember scree plot from PCA? We used to locate an elbow, and if elbow is at kth place, we would say that k minus 1 PCs are of interest. So here we would say k minus 1 factors are of interest. Okay, bad choice of notation. K we are using for number of factors. So, but I hope you're not too confused. Okay. Okay, and in case of correlation matrix, things are further simpler. So whatever we did with variance covariance matrix, all those things can be done using correlation matrix. So we can carry out factor analysis based on correlation matrix. The only difference is their trace would already be known. So variation explained by individual factor, proportion of variation explained by individual factor would be lambda j upon p, because trace will always be p. Okay. So if we are going with principal component method, then choosing the number of factors is exactly same as choosing the right number of pieces which are required for further analysis. Okay. So this is how the estimation works in the case of factor analysis. And if you remember, we also discussed that the solution is not unique. You can rotate the solution to get more interpretable results. Okay. So there are different types of rotations. So again, we are not going to go into more details, but you should know at least a few names. So the most widely used method of rotation is Varimax rotation. Okay. So what does Varimax rotation do? So for example, if I am in a bivariate setup, then we had seen this type of rotation matrix: cos theta, sin theta, minus sin theta, cos theta. We know that this is one rotation matrix in bivariate setup, correct? And we know that this is a rotation matrix for every choice of theta. So what Varimax rotation says is, choose theta in such a way, that it maximizes, it is very max, so it maximizes some sort of variation, right? So it maximizes the sum of the variances. It maximizes the sum of variances of the squared loadings, sum of the variances of the squared loadings within each column of Q, each column of the loading matrix. Okay, maybe if I write mathematically, it would be more clear. Sometimes notations are more useful than the description. So let me write the form. Okay, so we define QJL tilde as our QJL hat divided by HJ hat. So we are dividing by square root of the communality. Okay, we are dividing the estimated loading by square root of the communality of that particular variable. Okay, and the Varimax criterion says choose theta such that this quantity is maximized. And what is that quantity? 1 by p, sum over L going from 1 to k, because we have k factors, sum over j going from 1 to p, because we have p variables, QJL tilde raised to 4 minus 1 by p, sum over j going from 1 to p, QJL tilde square, and this whole thing square, and I complete this bracket. Okay, so what is this? It looks complicated, but don't worry, it's not that complicated. So that's what we discussed here, variances of the squared loadings. So in general we know variance of x is expected x square minus expected x whole square. Okay, so we are trying to do something like that. So now we want variance of the squared loading. So we would want q square, variance of q square type of thing. So it would be expectation of q raised to 4. Hence q raised to 4 is coming into picture, and because you want expectation, we are replacing it by sample mean. So sum and then 1 by p. And then this is like expected q square, and then you take whole square. Okay, expected q square whole square. Okay, of course I don't expect you to remember the formula, don't worry, you can look up whenever you actually need the formula, but you should have basic idea, hence I introduced this. So Varimax rotation is just one method. There are many other methods of rotation. For example, one is Quartimax. Okay, and there are a couple other methods, but we won't go into the details of those methods. Okay, so this is how. So how does the rotation matrix thing work? If I have already estimated my Q, okay, I'm sorry, just a minute. Okay, if I've already estimated my Q, then I can get rotated version of Q as original Q into the rotation matrix. Okay, and one interesting point about factor analysis is we saw that okay, we choose PCs again in the decreasing order of variation. So initially when you have not done any rotation, the first factor explains maximum amount of variation in the data, whereas when you go for second factor, it explains second maximum amount of variation in the data, etc. However, when you rotate, things change drastically. Okay, we will see this in a case study also. When you rotate, your first factor is no longer that important. In fact, some of the rotations actually do the job of spreading the variation across all the factors in roughly uniform manner. Let me repeat what I said. So right now, every factor, like without rotation, when we are using say principal component method for estimating the factors are also arranged in the decreasing order of importance. So the first factor explains maximum amount of variation, etc. However, when you rotate, that relationship is no longer true. In fact, some of the rotations divide the variation across all the factors more or less uniformly. So whatever number of factors you are considering, all those factors become factor analysis. In PCA, your order always matters. So your first PC will always be the most important, whereas in factor analysis, as soon as you enter the rotation business, that is no longer true. Your maybe second or third PC may be more important to you than the first PC. Okay? Is it okay? So actually very small theoretical discussion is remaining on how to compute factor scores, etc. But so do you have maybe 10 minutes or do you have next lecture? I mean, I'm asking, should I continue or should I take it in the next lecture or maybe a recording? I did ask a question and I'm expecting an answer. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Do it in the next lecture. Only 5-10 minutes theory is remaining. Do you have next lecture immediately, or do you have some other things immediately?
No, ma'am, you can continue.
Or is it okay? Thanks. So now the only part that remains is computation of factor scores. So we computed PC scores, if you remember. Similarly, we can compute what do we call score plot, again to see if there is similarity between some observations. So are there any groups, etc. So that can be done via factor analysis also. So for that we need to get scores, and these scores would actually give us some idea about the factors, because in the initial discussion we saw that factor analysis is used when we have something called as latent variables. Correct? So factor analysis is used when I actually want to talk about these latent variables, but I don't know how to talk about them because I don't know how to measure them. They are not quantifiable. So you talk about some observed variables, and then using that you try to say something about the latent variables. So you try to say whether the IQ of a person is high, whether intelligence of a person is high, using some information about the IQ. Okay. So for that, I need a relationship via factors. So again, there are various ways of computing, which is via regression method. Okay. So regression method of factor analysis. So what does it do? In regression, how do you estimate y? I mean, when you say, okay, you are trying to expectation of y given x. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there some lag
Yes, ma'am.
in my screen? I mean, I feel that. Okay. That's again, you're getting things. Okay. So y hat is, we estimate y by conditional expectation of y given the data, given the regressor. Correct? So we are going to use the same method here. So what we will do is, if I have x as my observed variable, then I take x minus mu, centered observed variables and factors, and prepare one vector from them. Okay. So this is p cross 1, k cross 1. So the total length of this vector is p plus k. Okay. Now for this vector, I know that variance, mean I know of course is 0 because I am centering x, and in the orthogonal factor model we had an assumption that f had 0 mean. So mean is anyway 0. I don't need to worry about mean. And variance, now we know something about it. So variance of x minus mu is sigma, which we know has been expressed as qq prime plus psi. Correct? Then variance of f we know is an identity matrix. Okay. And now I need covariance, and we have already shown that covariance between original variables, I mean the observed variables, and the factors is the loading matrix. Okay. So covariance terms would be this. So these are the submatrices. And if I assume joint normality for this, if I assume that this is a p plus k dimensional multivariate normal distribution, then I can find conditional expectation of f given the data, given the observed data, by using again theory from multivariate normal. So right now you will have to accept it to be true, and when we do multivariate normal you can verify it. So it will be q prime sigma inverse x minus mu. So this is actually sigma. Even though I have written qq prime plus psi, you know this is sigma. So q prime, so this q prime, then this sigma inverse, and then x minus mu. Okay. So this is conditional expectation. And hence we can use this to get factor scores. So factor scores are like expected values of the factors based on data. So we don't know Q, but we know Q hat. So we will use Q hat prime, and then instead of sigma, we will use sigma hat inverse, and then observed data. So for ith observation, if I want factor score, then I'll take ith observation minus mean. Okay. So this is how I get estimate of ith factor score. Okay, let me repeat. There is a slight confusion about notation. So see, just like PC, every factor will have scores corresponding to every observation. You remember score matrix that we computed in PCA? There it was P cross P, here it would be P cross K. So I would have factor 1, factor 2 up to factor K, and then I would have observation 1, observation 2 up to observation P. Okay. So if I am trying to get this, so what is the order of Q? Q is P cross K. So Q prime is K cross P, P cross P, and this is P cross 1. So the overall product is K cross 1. So basically, scores for first observation are here. Scores for second observation are here. So this actually, I should perhaps call it SI, scores for ith observation. So basically this is ith row from the score matrix. Okay. So ith row from the score matrix, that is scores for ith observation corresponding to all k factors, would be obtained via this method. So you use the ith observation, you center it, means you subtract the sample mean from it, you use sigma hat, and you use estimated Q. Okay. Now there is one more doubt you can perhaps ask, that is, should I take the sigma hat that I directly obtained from the data, or should I take this form of sigma hat, Q prime plus psi? But it is recommended that you take the sigma hat which is directly obtained from the data, because we know that when you do Q prime plus psi, you are already having some error in it. So to reduce the final error, you use sigma hat directly obtained from the data, and you use the factors, the loadings that are estimated, and then X bar is of course estimated. So this is how you can compute factor scores. Once you have factor scores, you can get score matrix, you can get score plot, which can be used again in classification, etc. Okay. So this is the actually end of theoretical discussion on factor analysis, but I'm sure you have not yet grasped how it is to be actually used, etc. So we will have a couple of lectures on case studies. Okay, so we'll see some examples where factor analysis is actually used and what all types of inferences can be drawn from that. I know compared to PCA, factor analysis is much more involved. So I would request you to, listen to the lectures again and try to go through the mathematical details again. Perhaps maybe after listening to the case studies, so that you'll get a better feel of it. Is it okay? So maybe I can stop here. I've already exceeded my time. So, but because this was only small discussion, I didn't want to keep it pending. So maybe we can stop now. Okay. Okay, so thank you.